Sheriff.
Something horrible happened here yesterday. A young woman murdered viciously in her apartment, and Broward Sheriff's deputies haven't arrested anybody yet.
Y'all, most relationships have a tendency to bring up drama. When there's high expectations, there can be jealousy, possessivity, and resentment. But if someone ends up cheating on you, you can always leave. Sakina Thompson didn't see that. In fact, she made the worst decision possible, punishing her boyfriend's secret lover in a gruesome way that even shocked the judge.
Always says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
With new details released, 28-year-old Sakina Thompson, age 28, from Springfield, New York, was arrested by New York police officers. She's expected to be extradited to Broward County to face one count of first-degree murder.
This is the tragic story of Kayla Hodgson. This was 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson back in 2022. She was always the life of the party, but she could be bubbly and elegant just as well. In the daytime, she worked as a flight attendant, dressed to the nines and using her smooth voice and charm to make passengers feel safe and comfortable. At night, though, she was a popular bartender, always able to get people dancing. She worked with a team of bartenders for private events, and she was one of the most well-loved members. Kayla was the kind of person who always knew how to put a smile on your face, no matter how you felt. When she wasn't doing either of these, Kayla lived in Tamarack, a small town in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She enjoyed going out at night with her friends, partying and dancing. One of her friends was a woman 5 years her senior, Sakina Thompson. She was a nail technician from New York. Just like Kayla, she was super popular with her regulars, and everyone thought she was really passionate about her job. Kayla surrounded herself with powerful, hardworking women who also liked to party. She was kind, friendly, and dedicated to all those around her. So when she was found brutally unalived in her Tamarack apartment, everyone was left in a state of shock and disbelief.
Something horrible happened here yesterday. A young woman murdered viciously in her apartment, and Broward Sheriff's deputies haven't arrested anybody yet, and they won't say if they have a suspect in mind.
And now to a tragedy in Tamarack after a woman is found dead. 7's Samantha Sosa is there live with more on the investigation and what we know about the victim.
The Broward County Sheriff's Office's mobile command center is still here on the scene as investigators continue processing evidence.
It couldn't be anything but a homicide investigation. On the afternoon of July 13th, 2022, this is the call that the sheriff's office got.
Always says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
A neighbor had found Kayla's unconscious body in her second-floor apartment in a state so graphic they could hardly look. They called the emergency services in a state of panic, urging them to come and try to save Kayla. But when the paramedics arrived, they realized the situation was beyond salvation. Kayla's body had multiple deep jag marks made with a sharp object, and her throat had been cut deep from ear to ear. There was nothing they could do to save her life. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and authorities were called to process the scene and start the murder investigation.
Detectives continue going in and out of a second-floor unit Thursday afternoon at the Tamarack Village Apartments along Commercial Boulevard. Investigators processing bags of evidence, including some found outside on the sidewalk. This command center here more than 20 hours after a deadly discovery.
As soon as the grisly news hit screens in Tamarack, Kayla's family turned up at the scene. Then her neighbors. Then her friends, co-workers, and anyone who was hit hard by the news. First off, these poor people needed closure, and coming together in a hard time like this helped them try to understand the shock of losing Kayla at just 23. Then there was a call for justice. By gathering by the dozens, people were hoping to put pressure on detectives to find Kayla's killer ASAP. Other neighbors were quick to point out that apart from feeling terrible for Kayla, they feared for their safety too.
You don't know if it's someone that lives here, or if it's someone that the person knew that lives outside, but yes, definitely concerning.
Some people also explained that Tamarack was a safe town with a crime rate below the national average, and that the apartment complex was among the safest places around. This was not the kind of place where violent crimes were normalized or even heard about.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Absolutely. We've been here 10 years and nothing like this has ever happened.
We never really have any crime, anything like this that I've ever heard or seen before. I live in an adjacent community, and me personally, I'm concerned whether or not it was domestic. or something that's random. Obviously, it's random, something to be concerned about.
Yeah, imagine hearing about a murder in your building. Would you even go out anymore? Kayla's untimely death also sparked outrage on the internet. There were people praying for her family, people asking for justice, and people making long, thoughtful comments about the tragedy of losing someone so young. It's a dark and scary thought that you can lose your life at any age. Still, it's not something that's supposed to happen, and it's definitely not right when someone steals a life. Kayla's life was not someone else's to take. When someone commented, asking how Kayla had died, two comments emphasized something authorities also expected. Some guy slashed her throat in her apartment. Too many toxic males out there. Toxic is a light word, y'all. But yeah, everyone expected Kayla's killer to be a man. Sadly, the stats just point at men almost every time something like this happens. It's usually DV reaching a boiling point, or a serial predator looking for young women who live alone or are vulnerable in some way.
My respects to the family. Terrible.
Y'all heard the news, right? The southern border in Texas is still letting migrants in. And guess what? The gov's handing out $5,000 to each of them. And guys, every single one of us can snag this cash too. All Americans can get $5K today for free. It's basically a tax refund, but you don't even need a job to claim this. They're calling it a health subsidy, but honestly, it's just a free bag from the state. It only takes 3 minutes out of your day, and y'all can get this spending card overnight. Thanks to Uncle Sam, y'all can use this instantly to start wiping out your bills like gas, groceries, rent, or even pocket whatever you don't spend. Best part, this ain't a loan, and they don't need any personal info, just a name and an address to send it to. But here's the deal, this week is the last week to claim these funds, and if you make less than $50,000 and not on Medicare, you're set to get this. So drop everything and hit up the official state link below. Answer 2 easy yes or no questions and make a quick call. 3 minutes tops and y'all are approved for your own card loaded with all them funds. Don't let this slip on by. Claim this free bag. Click the link below before this is gone.
Did you know Sling has your favorite news programs for just $40 a month?
News for just $40 a month? News for just $40 a month? $40 a month? $40 a month?
News for $40 a month. Sling lets you do that.
Tragedy. Whatever happened. It's a lost soul.
No matter what the circumstances were, that's undeniably true. Again, Broward Sheriff's Office detectives have not made any arrests yet in this case.
For a good while, Kayla's case was ongoing but quiet. No one heard of any leads or clues, and every update was a reiteration of an old fact. There have been no arrests yet. The wide public was urged to ring with any potential clues, sightings, or knowledge about Kayla. Even her family didn't know anything that could help authorities in their investigation. You know how, in most crimes like these, it's someone close to the victim? Detectives expected Kayla's loved ones to know something, a creepy friend, an enemy, a jilted ex, anything that they could follow. As it turns out, Kayla did not have a jilted ex, but she was seeing someone at the time of her death. It was a man named Terry, and he was known for his short temper and toxic relationships. When they got his name, detectives were certain he was suspect number 1, but as they dug deeper, they learned something even more disturbing. Kayla had met Terry through her 28-year-old friend, Sakina Thompson, and, well, Terry was in fact Sakina's boyfriend. Terry was a player in that nasty sense, and Sakina knew it. In fact, she seemed to document their turbulent, toxic relationship on social media. She would post videos of them cuddling or flirting, but also fighting, or videos of herself promising she would break things off with him, only to show the two back together a week later. Or this video, where Sakina opens up birthday presents from Terry for everyone to see. One might even venture to guess this was her attempt to convince the world she was in a good relationship. But she was trying to convince herself, more likely. Around July 10th, 2022, Terry and Sakina flew from New York to Miami to party. At a nightclub, the two met Kayla and danced together for a while. But at one point in the night, Sakina started having the wrong thoughts about Terry and Kayla. It seemed like the two were getting a little too close for her inner peace. With years of anger and mistrust built toward Terry, Sakina put a tracker on his Range Rover. Her suspicions were well-founded. The following day, she learned Terry had driven over to Kayla's apartment. Now she knew knew he was cheating on her, and she also knew where Sakina lived. Here's the thing. When investigators looked at Sakina's social media, they didn't just find videos of her and Terry flirting and fighting. They also found several reels where she is promising to harm people who have wronged her.
You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right?
I still got one. I'ma smack the wig off. And then I'ma change.
Hey, it's one thing to set healthy boundaries and break off friendships and relationships that invade your space, but revenge talk and aggression don't take anyone too far. It's always an eye for an eye, and you end up in a paranoid world, thinking everybody wants to harm you and planning your next wild move. This was the world Sakina lived in. Whenever she would have a falling out with someone, she would take to the internet and promise revenge, and she spoke about it like that somehow made her cool or powerful. Heartbreakingly, Sakina really did not have a conscience. If she did, she would not have done what she did on July 13th. Here she is, storming into Kayla's apartment building and running to her apartment with a plan to take her life. She broke into the apartment complex, fooled her way into Kayla's unit, and brutally took her life using a knife and an undisclosed sharp object. She took pleasure in doing so. She took her time. She didn't just inflict a lethal injury, she jagged her repeatedly and sliced her neck from ear to ear, making sure there was no coming back from that. And an hour later, she met Terry and they boarded a plane back to New York City. Almost 3 weeks after Kayla lost her life, authorities had good news to share with the public.
New details tonight on an arrest in New York City. This after a young woman was killed last month inside her apartment in Tamarack.
The suspect was arrested in a neighborhood in Queens. That was 3 weeks after the homicide here. It's also where residents are relieved.
Once again, Kayla's neighbors came out to speak to the cameras, this time happy they could feel safe again.
I am very happy to hear about it because we were scared. We heard different stories from different people, and I happen to live on the floor above her, so I'm very happy. It makes me feel a lot better and more secure that they finally arrested somebody.
Everyone was happy that someone was behind bars, but they were truly shocked when they learned who it was. A 28-year-old woman who decided to punish her cheating boyfriend by unaliving his secret lover. Sakina was arrested in Springfield Gardens on August 3rd, 2022, and put on Rikers Island without bond. Then, she was extradited to Broward County and charged with first-degree murder.
This is a very important update for the community of Tamarack. In the news of a brutal murder that happened right behind me in this apartment complex, the murder of Kayla Hodgson. 28-year-old Sakina Thompson, age 28, from Springfield, New York, was arrested by New York police officers. She's expected to be extradited to Broward County to face one count of first-degree murder.
With this piece of news, Kayla's family could finally begin to feel some closure. Now, they didn't have to talk about getting justice anymore. They could honor and remember Kayla for the kind, lively person she was. The Hodgson family also launched a GoFundMe campaign to help cover her funeral expenses. Kayla meant so much to so many people. She was an amazing daughter, a very loved and adored big sister, niece, granddaughter, and cousin, whose bond was like no other. Even people who did not know Kayla personally were hit hard by this story and took to social media to share thoughtful messages for her and her family. Someone commented on Kayla's Instagram, "This beautiful baby didn't deserve that. Story really pains my heart." Sakina is being held at the North Broward Bureau Jail. Her bond has been denied. Her act was so ruthless, callous, and extreme that she was declared a very dangerous person. She is not to walk the streets perhaps ever again. Sakina Thompson's outrageous story does not end here. As it turns out, while she was in jail, she found out she was pregnant. This was not a reason for joy, given the situation. Instead, Sakina used her pregnancy in a desperate attempt to obtain mercy from the judge. Here's a letter she wrote from the Florida prison. "To your Honorable Judge Casey, I'm writing this letter to you in hope of finding mercy from the court to allow me to give birth outside of jail while also fighting my case." It's almost funny how Sakina mentions mercy and sympathy when she wasn't able to show either of these traits when dealing with Kayla. It gets even more outrageous when you think she went to punish her boyfriend's lover, not her boyfriend. Terry had just met Kayla. In all respects, it's very likely Kayla didn't even know Sakina was Terry's girlfriend. With their constant fights and breakups, a lying Terry could have convinced Kayla he'd broken up with with Sakina. The situation was so murky between the two of them that it's not even clear if Terry and Sakina were on the same page about where they were as a couple. Someone commented simply about Sakina's pleading letter to the judge. She pregnant now and wants the judge to release her. Girl bye. Yeah. Many people are outraged that Sakina believed she could get out of prison, even pregnant, after what she'd done to poor Kayla. Meanwhile, Kayla's loved ones held candlelit vigils and released balloons, keeping their love for her alive and inviting others to honor her in any way they could. That's what tends to happen in stories like these. The lost one is honored and remembered, and their tragic story is used as a lesson to raise awareness. People open foundations or launch websites in their name and hold them in their memory forever. Meanwhile, their callous killer is slowly forgotten behind bars, no matter how much attention they try to get. That's right. Despite Sakina's desperate pleas, her judge ignored her and denied her bond. The judge let her know they were shocked and disgusted by her actions, and she would never see the light of day, at least until her trial. Speaking of her trial, there have not been any updates on Sakina Thompson since late 2022. She remains in the Florida prison, awaiting trial, and most likely working hard with her defense attorneys to obtain a light punishment. But how can you expect a light punishment when you take a life without hesitation? Looking at similar stories, Sakina will probably try and pin some of the blame on her ex Terry. His Range Rover was still at the apartment complex when the authorities arrived and found Kayla's body. It's unclear where Terry was at the time of the slaying, but it's likely Sakina's defense will use his toxic ways to make her look more innocent. As it goes with justice, it might take a good few years before Sakina goes through her trial and obtains a sentence. Kayla's family is hoping they will get the justice they deserve for her, and Sakina will spend the rest of her life behind bars. It's a scary thought that a person like her could end up released while she's still young and capable of inflicting harm on others. Let's just hope Sakina